Welcome, welcome everyone. This looks like a fabulous crowd on a bright, sunny, warm afternoon. Wait a minute, wrong event. Hang on. Welcome. Just want to greet everybody and say hello, and we appreciate everyone's attendance and participation in the First Principles Forum's first Republican candidate event. It's a forum, not a debate, and it's an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about the 5 Republican candidates vying for the governorship of Indiana, and we are looking forward to hearing what they have to say. But to begin the night, I would like to introduce for invocation Father Jude Wegwa, and if I could welcome you, Father, for a quick invocation.
Thank you so much. It's an evening event, so let us bow our heads and pray. Our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth, good and gracious God, from whom all authority comes. We thank you for the opportunity to gather this evening to learn more about our candidates for leadership. We ask you, O divine source of wisdom, in this moment, as we come together with open hearts and minds, seeking your guidance and blessings, we ask that you grant us the grace to learn more about your will and to lean towards your will in all that we do and say. Guide our event tonight, and as we retire after the event, lead us home safely. For this we ask in your most holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Father. I suppose I should say who I am. My name is Devin Anderson. I'm a local business person, live here in Indianapolis, have been involved in the First Principles Forum with Heather and the other founders for quite a while. And I was the last person on the list, and I said yes. So, first order of business is I would like to introduce our moderators. We have 2 moderators with us tonight, and we're thrilled to have them. First, Joy Pullmann is Executive Director of The Federalist, an Education Policy Fellow at the Heartland Institute, a co-founder of a classical Christian school, and the mother of 6. In fairness, I did ask her if that was a typo. She said it was not. And no twins. Joy is an 18-year education and politics reporter. Joy's testified before nearly 24 legislatures on education policy and appeared on major media from Fox News to PBS to Ben Shiro and Dennis Prager. A farm-born, city-living Hoosier, Joy is a grateful graduate of the Hillsdale College Honors in Journalism programs. Are you running for governor? Okay.
Never.
Her next book, False Flag, One Nation Under Pride, will be out with Regnery in June. So please welcome Joy. We are really honored to have our next moderator as well. You will know her and know her face, Fanchon Stinger. And by the way, hey Fanchon, could you step out, please? Today is her birthday. So, Fanchon, because we're on a schedule, we won't be singing at this part of the show. Fanchon is a 15-time Emmy-winning TV host and former Fox 59 anchor who retired from broadcast news in May 2022. She now focuses on producing positive and inspirational media through her company, FLS Media and Strategic Solutions, and hosting events nationwide. Fanchon's mission is to equip young ladies to be courageous, value-driven, and uphold principles of faith, family, and freedom. In 2021, Fanchon founded Grit and Grace Nation, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering young girls to lead. The organization provides programs focused on mentorship, etiquette training, career prep, mental health, and developing life skills. And as of today, and this is actually big news, it's just announced today on Merritt Street Media, a media firm founded by Dr. Phil, Fanchon will be hosting a morning show on the Merritt Street Media Network, on Merritt Street Lifestyle Show, and it'll be in the morning. And you can find it on all your streaming services. So that's as of today. There's another thing here that I thought needed extra attention. With a lifelong love for animal welfare and Western sports, Fanchon owns 2 bucking bulls that compete in the professional bull riders events. PBR partners closely with Fanchon to host events and honor young leaders and Grit of Grace Nation on a local and national stage. In fact, on March 1st, Fanchon will host the annual Grit and Grace Celebrity Gala and fundraiser at the Lucas Oil Estate in Carmel. Supermodel turned super mogul Kathy Ireland, some of us remember her, Chair and CEO Kathy Ireland Worldwide will receive the Living Legend Award. And for more information about that event, please scan, there's a QR code somewhere, as I'm told. So now, I'd like to introduce our candidates that we are so grateful they've taken the time to be here. First, and they will be seated in alphabetical order, but I'm going to start with Curtis Hill. So Curtis is a lifelong Hoosier who has spent his entire life serving his community. Curtis has served as Indiana Attorney General and Elkhart County Prosecutor. As Attorney General, Curtis ushered in a new era of accountability, stood up for the sanctity of life, defended churches and businesses from the restrictive government shutdowns, and brought executive leadership to an office of government in desperate need of revival. Curtis lives in Elkhart, Indiana, with his wife, Teresa, a school teacher, and Curtis and Teresa have 5 children. Welcome, Curtis. Thank you for being here. Our next candidate is Eric Doden. Eric is president of Pago USA, a company that restores small-town main streets across the country. He is also an entrepreneur and founded Domo Development and Domo Ventures. He, too, is a graduate from Hillsdale College and earned a law degree from the University of Valparaiso. Under Governor Pence, Doden served as the president of the IEDC. He also served as CEO of the Greater Fort Wayne Allen County Business Chamber. He lives in Fort Wayne with his wife Marcy and 5 kids, where they attend Black Hawk Christian Church. Welcome, Eric. Our next candidate is our current sitting Lieutenant Governor, Suzanne Crouch. Suzanne is our 52nd Lieutenant Governor. In that role, she serves as the President of the Indiana Senate and the Executive in charge of the Indiana Department of Agriculture, the Office of Community and Rural Affairs, and the Indiana Destination Development Corporation. Suzanne also served as County Commissioner. She was born and raised in Indiana and graduated from Purdue. She and her husband, Larry, reside in Evansville and have a grown daughter, Courtney. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for being here. Our next candidate, Hoosier born and raised, Brad Chambers, is a political outsider and self-made entrepreneur who started his business in college and grew it into a real estate portfolio exceeding $3 billion, employing hundreds of Hoosiers. Brad recently concluded a 2-year term as Indiana's Secretary of Commerce, where he stepped away from his business and ushered in an unprecedented investment, tens of thousands of jobs, and wages 30% higher than any time in state history, and taking a whopping $1 a year salary. The benefits are probably good, I would think. But Brad is a trustee and longtime member of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Indianapolis. He and his wife, Carol, have 1 son, Nick. Brad, thank you for being here. And our final candidate is U.S. Senator Mike Braun. Senator Mike Braun is a conservative outsider who spent his career as a Main Street entrepreneur, building a business and creating thousands of good-paying Hoosier jobs before being elected to the U.S. Senate in 2018. Mike is a conservative voice for Hoosiers since his historic victory in the 2018 U.S. Senate election, leading over 35 bills into law, and was named the most effective first-term Republican senator. Mike earned endorsements from Americans for Prosperity and CPAC and maintains excellent ratings from the NRA, Family Research Council, National Right to Life, and Susan B. Anthony List. Mike and Maureen have been married for 47 years and have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. Senator, welcome. So let me talk a little bit about the format for tonight. And remember, I would emphasize this is a forum, not a debate. So a forum gives us a chance to hear answers or the candidates' thoughts to certain questions. And there isn't really a back and forth or a debate format. So I just wanted to remind everybody of the format. So here's how it's going to work. We will start with first question. The senator will answer it first. And then each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer, to do their best, to be as concise as possible in 90 seconds. There are, as a reminder, those are the timers on the left and the right for the candidates to see. As each candidate goes through the first question, the second question will start with Brad. And then we'll go through, and the senator will be last, and then so on. So that will be the order of how we'll handle the questions. And Fanchon and Joy will alternate questions. We'll have, if time allows, we'll have time for a speed round. A speed round will be a question asked of each candidate, and they'll be asked to provide a one-word answer, a yes or no, or a one-word answer. So those questions will be clearly very simple. So, and at the end, there will be, we'll have a 2-minute closing statement for each candidate. So that is the format. So having said that, moderators, are you at charge? Let's begin. Fanchon, first question.
We begin our first question tonight with one on the very dear topic to so many Hoosier families of education. Only 31% of Indiana public school students in grades 3 through 8 are now proficient for their grade level in both math and language arts. High school graduation rates today are less than those in 2019. Yet Indiana continues to grow K through 12 spending, which now consumes half of Indiana's budget with no accountability for student outcomes. In each of the next 2 years, listen to this, Indiana will spend $2,300 per student attending private schools and $13,000 per student attending public schools. Candidates, do you support delivering the full amount of every Hoosier child's K through 12 funding into an education savings account that his parents can then use at a private, public, or home school, or a blend of school options they choose?
Excellent question. And when you take that half of our budget, that is $11 billion a year. And when you look at some of the statistics where we got kids reading at levels of 10 years ago, something's got to give. On the particular question of savings accounts, so you can have the option to do things other than what the system might give you, of course you need to be for that. I was just last night, it's National School Choice Week. Senator Tim Scott has been big behind that. We need to throw everything in the kitchen sink at it. Parents need to be the drivers in their own kids' education. I'll give you a little story. When I was out in a committee meeting with Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, and I asked him a simple question. Who should be the main stakeholder in our own kids' education? Gave him every chance to say parents. Could not tease it out of him. After the Virginia election, he came back. I got him to say it then. Choice, competition, parents in the driver's seat, including tools like you're talking about. If we don't do something different Don't expect the results to be different. You got to be entrepreneurial, you got to stick your neck out, and you're going to have to take on established education in our state if you're going to get it changed.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chambers?
Thank you. As we look into the future, there's nothing more important than a dynamic and growing economy and state than our kids in economic development, in my view, and a growing economy starts in third grade, and making sure that our kids can read before they move on from third grade to fourth grade. The legislature is working on that as we speak. So, as Senator Braun said, choice is super important. There's nothing more important in the educational journey than parents, and parents need to be central to that. We've made good progress as it relates to choice in Indiana and making sure that families have choice of their educational journey, but we can continue to do more. I also believe that education needs to be more individualized. We have a very backwards-looking educational system built over the last 50 to 75 years. It needs to be forward-looking to embrace an economy of the future. So making education more individualized and really modernizing it as much as we can with performance-based outcomes. Just like in business, performance-based outcomes work for business. They should be able to be applied to education as well. So there's no more greater opportunity than addressing education, making sure our kids can read, making sure parents are front and center in their educational journey, making sure choice is front and center and available, so families can enjoy a productive educational journey. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lieutenant Governor?
May I stand?
You may do whatever
Thank
you
you.
so choose.
I talk to parents all over the state, and it's clear that they can make the best decision regarding their children's education. And as governor, I'll make sure that they have the choices and that they can direct the funding. But also as governor, I'll make sure that parents control what's being taught to our children. We will be sure that we focus on the 4 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. We'll protect our most valuable, precious resource, which is our children, and protect them from indoctrination and manipulation and harm that could come to them. And as governor, I'll make sure that law enforcement and school administrators and teachers have our children's safety as a top priority. But one thing I want to touch upon that's very near and dear to me, and that is the mental health of our young people. Because of COVID and the masks and the mandates and the lockdowns, we've seen a 60% increase in depression and anxiety among our young people. In the last 6 months, 1 out of 7 high school boys, 1 out of 4 high school girls have contemplated suicide. It is the second leading cause of death among young people. And that is the future of Indiana. And so we need to ensure that our children are prepared, that parents have choices, and that our children are safe physically and mentally, so that they can be prepared for the next step in life, whether it's enlistment, employment, enrollment, or apprenticeship. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Mr. Doden?
We have a constitutional obligation to educate our children, and I think we have a moral obligation to educate our children with excellence. And school choice is a big part of that. I'm a firm believer that parents and children should be able to pick the school that's best for them, and that they should be able to pick the school, whether it's private or whether it's public or whether it's charter. I also would add that it's very important for us to, we have a teacher crisis across the entire state. So I've been on the road 2.5 years, and I've met with leaders all over the state of Indiana. And in some cases, we're having a hard time opening up classrooms for our kids. And that's why we have a teacher investment program, which would attract and retain talent and bring teachers back and keep them in the industry, so that they will not only educate our kids, but that we will be able to educate all of our children. So I think the teacher investment program is going to be critical. We also have some money coming due in our budget that we have been able to save, and we have put a real stake in the ground that we need to do pre-K and make sure that we give these kids the best opportunity at a younger age to make sure that they can be educated. We know we have a problem with reading, and we got to go solve that problem. And so these are the things that we have put in writing for you guys. We have this actually, as you leave, you'll be able to see these ideas in writing and understand that education will be a critical component and front and center in my administration as governor.
Thank you, Mr. Doden. Mr. Hill, who is a phenomenal Elvis impersonator, by the way. Sorry to do that. I heard him during warm-up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to ask why we're asking the question about choice. Of course we want to give choices, but the problem that we have is that we have an education system that's too dependent upon the federal government. I envision Indiana being an education system that's free of the federal entanglements. And it's great to talk about choice. Choices, choices, choices. But folks, when your options are not good, and you heard about the statistics, when your options are not that good, we need to do something about our school system. We need to tear it down and get back to basics. We need to provide the fundamentals. We need to make sure that parents have the tools that they need, but we need to make sure that teachers have what they need as well. It's not enough to just simply have choices. We need to, in my administration, we're going to look for curriculum change. We're going to bust down what's going on. This has been years in the making so that we can develop a new solid system so that our kids can be as bright and as strong as they need to be moving forward. It's imperative that we get behind our education process and provide not just money. It's not about money. It's about providing the type of education for reading, for history, for civics, to make sure that our kids know how to critically think. If you can teach a child how to critically think, it doesn't matter what you try to indoctrinate them to. So we need to focus on critical thinking skills. We need to focus on decision making. We need to focus on making sure that our children can be the brightest that they can be to improve our workforce, improve our families, and improve our way of life here in Indiana.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. So, first question, round one done, ice is broken. So now, I thought I would tell you a little bit about First Principles Forum, give the candidates a chance to get a drink. So, and by the way, I would want to remind everybody, if you could please silence your cell phones during this portion, and we'd appreciate it. First Principles Forum was founded in May of 2021 by a group of families who were concerned about the breakdown in civil discourse and recognizing too few opportunities to hear from nationally recognized speakers. FPF is a nonpartisan, nonprofit education organization. It neither endorses candidates for office nor engages in issue advocacy. Our events are strictly educational, with the intent of broadening the local political debate in a healthy way for people of all ages. We frequently have multi-generational audiences, which we do tonight as well, which many times about a third of our audiences, which this is about the typical size, frankly, are under 35. And I also want to call, we have students, we oftentimes have high school and college students. So we have students here from actually Maurer Law School, from Butler, from Carmel High School, Guerin Cathedral. So welcome young people, we appreciate you. So, second question, Joy. And by the way, I apologize, Brad, or Mr. Chambers, you'll take that first.
Governor Eric Holcomb single-handedly and indefinitely extended his emergency powers, which resulted in coercing Hoosiers into medical treatments, shuttering businesses, closing schools, and mandating masks. The economic and physical harms from these policies are still being felt throughout the state, particularly with our youngest Hoosiers, many of which have yet to catch up on years of learning loss and, statistically speaking, will never recover. The Indiana General Assembly is considering Senate Bill 234 this session. It would limit the governor's state of emergency declaration to only 30 days. First part, yes or no, do you support this bill? As governor, would you sign this bill if you were governor? And second, under what conditions do you think an executive emergency order is necessary and justified?
Mr. Chambers?
Thank you. Emergency powers are a significant power, and I believe it first starts with collaboration with the legislative leadership and the governor. So that should be in place. But I'm generally supportive of what's going through the legislature right now. I've seen the final bill, and upon reading the final bill, I would agree that limiting to the extent possible emergency powers is a good thing. So your second question.
Under what conditions do you think an executive emergency order is necessary and justified?
Right.
So future potential applications.
Sure. Obviously, another COVID instance or weather would be instances where you'd have emergency powers, and with this this legislation in place, it would be in collaboration with legislative leadership. So I think, generally speaking, shortening those powers and making them more limited is a good idea.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. Lieutenant Governor.
Fauci and the federal government lied to us. And as a result, there were many actions that were taken at the federal and at the state level that impacted our freedoms and that caused harm to Hoosier families. When I am governor, I will allow Hoosiers to make decisions regarding their health. And we won't have masks, we won't have mandates, and we won't have lockdowns. And so as we look to the emergency powers of a governor, having served as a state representative in the legislative branch, having served as auditor of state, now lieutenant governor in the executive branch, I believe that our government operates best when there is a balance of power and there is equal power. And when you have a state of emergency like we saw during COVID, the power became concentrated in one branch, which is not healthy for all of us. And so I support Senate Bill 234, put a statement out yesterday in support of it, because it limits the governor's emergency powers. And as the legislature be involved, if they extend beyond 30 days, because they're the people that are closest to the people. And your voices need to be heard, and they need to be considered as emergencies move forward. If we ever found ourselves in the same situation, I expect we would have another emergency. And we have emergencies when there are tornadoes or when there's, a catastrophic disaster. But they should be very, very rare. And when they are, the legislative branch should be involved so that we have that balance of power remaining, and Hoosiers are best served, and your health is best protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Doden.
When I started running 2.5 years ago, the first question I got asked was on this topic on TV, and I was very clear at the time, and I'll be very clear here. I do not think it was appropriate to have mask mandates. I do not think it was appropriate to have vaccine mandates, and under my leadership of governor, we will not do that. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm not very good, probably like most of you in this room, at being told what to do, especially at my age. And so I think that want to be very clear on that topic. I also am in favor of limiting the emergency powers in part because most of the time your emergencies are short window and need to be dealt with quickly, and then you can move on. In this case, the emergency power lasted a much longer time than anyone could have dreamed possible. And so my perspective, and the reason why I'm supporting it, is because of my belief of the importance of collaboration. When you're in leadership, what should have happened from my point of view is as soon as this thing began to extend, there should have been a lot more relationship and collaboration with the governor and the General Assembly who represent the people. And so that's why, from my perspective, I want to be clear that I'm fine with limiting the powers because that's just consistent with my philosophy of leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Doden. Mr. Hill?
Well, folks, let's just face it. Governor Holcomb blew it. We had 23 months of emergency orders. Where was the emergency? We had an emergency early on for a few months because we didn't know what was going on. When we got a handle on it, we should have relieved ourselves from that. And I was Attorney General at the time, and I did communicate with the governor, and I communicated with the General Assembly because they're complicit in this too. You don't go 23 months with emergency orders if the General Assembly doesn't sit on its tail and not step in it. So it's not all the governor. But from my perspective, I got involved. I sent a letter to the governor saying, you can't mandate masks. I don't see anyone else on this stage who took that leadership role. Not the lieutenant governor, not the United States senator. Somebody has to stand up to an exercise in power when it's too much. We had governors all over the state, including our own, that were going on television on a regular basis and using this emergency to be able to demonstrate their wartime consigliere skills. That's not necessary. So yes, I do support a bill that would limit the emergency orders. We do need limitations. The statute that allows for 30 days with a rollover is appropriate, and it's necessary apparently because we can sometimes get governors who don't know when to quit.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Senator Braun.
Number one, it's sad that you would even have to have a bill to do this. When I was watching this from afar, and I want to correct you on one thing, Curtis, if you remember when the federal government was trying to force businesses down to 100 employees to get a vaccination, when COVID was in the rearview mirror, it was your junior senator that invoked the Congressional Review Act, got Democrats to go along with it in the Senate, and that nonsense was gotten rid of when the Supreme Court weighed in 2 weeks later. That's how you get stuff done. And whenever you say you're going to do it, make sure you practice what you preach. When it comes to what would constitute a severe emergency, that clearly was not one. We look more like the surrounding blue states in Michigan and the governor down in Kentucky than we did of peer governors in red states. It was shameful what we did. When you start doing things like you're an essential business and you're not, that is government gone wild. That's easy to see. And then you got to have the guts and the political will to do something about it.
Thank you, Senator. That concludes round two. Now I'd like to do one thing. I want to introduce a couple people. We have some public officials here. State Rep Jerry Torr, who I saw earlier and I think is sitting right down there. We're sitting in his district. Jerry, welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your service. Sorry I didn't give the House warning on this. And then I'd like to introduce our new Indiana Solicitor General, James Barta. Stand up. You're welcome. Had replaced a longtime Solicitor General for Indiana, Tom Fisher, who was also an intern of mine in a year that I won't speak. Then the third official I'd like to invite needs no introduction, Tony Katz, WIBC host. Hello, welcome, thank you for coming. Okay, question number 3, Fanchon, and then the Lieutenant Governor will take it first.
Thank you. Question number 3, speaking of the blue state of Michigan. Michigan is currently experiencing power outages as energy grids shift to weather-dependent energy sources like wind and solar. Indiana has and continues to shut down reliable coal production in favor of wind and solar sources, even though Indiana energy companies like NIPSCO acknowledge potential winter capacity gaps that can lead to power outages. What is your plan to provide reliable, low-cost, and locally controlled energy to average Hoosiers and economic development projects as well?
Thank you. America has been the target of emission standards for years, for decades. But America is one country. And so why doesn't China and foreign countries come to the same standards that we are? Because if we continue to choke the existing industry in this country, there will be no economic development. We have seen under President Biden and under President Obama, our energy policy being just absolutely to the left. And so I, as governor, am very hesitant and probably wouldn't engage with Biden at the helm in our climate action plan. But we have to be sure that we are moving forward, and we can't move forward without an energy plan. As governor, I will have an energy plan that will be diversified with all the above options, that will be focused on affordability, reliability, and sustainability. We will work with the utility companies to ensure that cogeneration is part of that energy mix. And we are going to be sure that we have a statewide plan for all of our resources, including water, so we don't see the problems we have had with the LEAP district. As governor, I will work with our congressional district, with our congressional delegation, to be sure that we push back on federal regulations and the EPA restrictions. As a state representative, I sponsored a bill that saved ratepayers $1 billion in energy bill. $1 billion. And so I have the experience to make the decisive actions to not only keep the lights on, but to keep utilities affordable for Hoosier families. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Mr. Doden?
So this is an example of federal overreach. And what we have now is a federal government that's trying to shut down coal plants and trying to force them offline. So here's the challenge. Right now, our experts are telling us that we are using about the same amount of energy as we produce. And we're not replacing energy. We're not doing any more production. So as you take coal plants down, what that means is what's going to happen is we're going to have to start going to the grid and buying it from other states at sometimes 5 to 7 times or multiple times higher, which is going to drive all of our energy prices up. And so we're taking all of the above approach. What we're going to have, what we have right now, they're developing a plan for us to have, probably more than likely gas plants to begin with. There's also some VAR nuclear opportunities coming down the pike, but it's not quite ready yet. They're going to develop a plan for us to increase production. The challenge is it can take 3 to 5 years to get this online. So our solution is that what we're going to do on day one, we're going to issue an executive order that we can no longer shut down a coal plant until we have a reliable replacement. That is what we're going to do, and that's how we're going to keep the federal government from overreaching and causing us the problems they are in our power supply right now.
Thank you, Mr. Doden. Mr. Hill?
Well, folks, energy has been the lifeblood of America. It's how we've kept ourselves warm. It's how we've progressed as a society. And let's not beat around the bush. What we're talking about from a policy standpoint is we need to embrace fossil fuels. Fossil fuels is what's gotten us here. It provides 80% of the energy across the world, and it is still reliable, sustainable, low cost effective. Now, there's all sorts of alternative options out there. Research continue to look into those things, but the reality is this: they are not sustainable, they're not reliable. So from a policy standpoint, we are going to embrace fossil fuels. It's not a dirty word. I cross the state and we hear about carbon capture and carbon this and carbon that. We're going to remove it from the air. These are ridiculous policies that are hurting farmers and hurting our hardworking Hoosiers. We're not going to have any of that. We're going to stick to fossil fuels. We're going to embrace alternatives as they come online. But this concept of having the foreseeability of brownouts, rolling brown. We haven't had brownouts to experience. We're about to. It's going to happen based upon what's going now with the shutdowns of the coal plants, and we need to reverse it, and we'll reverse it right away.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Senator Braun?
We used to be in the 5 lowest utility cost states in the country. Now, take a guess, 33rd. So what the heck has been going on over the last 10 years, and it's due mostly to the investor-owned utilities in our own state that have bought into the nonsense coming from the federal government. And now it's an issue not only to prevent brownouts, but it hurts our position as being a place to run a business economically. Mentioned, don't shut a coal-fired plant down unless you'd have some other baseload replacement. That makes sense. Any coal plant that does get shut down, those utilities need to give it up so it can go into the marketplace, even if it's for $1, and someone else needs to be able to pick it up. The only thing we own as Hoosiers that we do not have to import until advanced nuclear technology takes hold, that's the closest thing to being baseload that we've got currently, is coal. We will import the natural gas. And that's been a volatile market. That's the go-to baseload fuel. So it's typical federal government, I wrestle with it all the time, unfunded mandates based on crazy ideas. You need to make sure that you don't follow that bad example in your own state. I can guarantee you that won't happen with me at the helm. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chambers?
I agree. We used to be in the top half of affordability in energy in Indiana. Now we're in the bottom half. We have enormous opportunity to continue to grow our economy, but we're with almost $100 billion of economic activity looking at the state of Indiana. Yet we do have a 2035 EPA mandate to close our coal plants. That's a federal mandate that's arbitrary, that's causing energy to not only be unstable, but also to be more expensive going into the future. We need to have a all-of-the-above approach of fossil fuels, coal, gas, solar, wind, and even nuclear. I was 600 feet below ground at the Gibson County coal mine yesterday, talking to coal miners and understanding how they're doing. They're very proud of the coal production in Indiana. Let those coal mines expire on a natural progression. Don't force them to close. We're going to need all kinds of diverse energy sources, including coal. Those are, right now, the Gibson mine is supposed to be mature in 2040. The current mandate for the EPA is 2035, but it's causing us to take offline perfectly good coal-fired energy plants and replace it with $3 or $4 billion worth of new equipment. When that's unnecessary. This needs to be long-term, stable, steady plan for the future that has all of the above energy sources. I agree. We're not going away from fossil fuels tomorrow, and probably not for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It needs to be a steady, stable plan with reliability and dependability to grow our economy into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Ready for, I don't have any special announcements between this one, so. Question number 4, Joy?
15 years ago, Indiana's healthcare costs were among the lowest in the nation. Today, they rank among the highest. According to the RAND Corporation, Indiana's nonprofit hospital prices rank between the 4th and 7th highest in the country, with 5 hospital systems dominating the state. I will also mention they are among the highest Indiana campaign contributors in our state politics. I have 2 questions for you. One is specific and one is broadly related to this. The first one, current issue right now before the Indiana legislature. Should the state fix its surprise $1 billion Medicaid shortfall by cutting pay for full-time family caregivers of severely disabled children and adults? And the broad question is, what is your plan to lower health care costs for Hoosiers and employers?
Mr. Doden?
This is a topic that I've been talking about for about 5 years now. One of the things that I'm deeply concerned about is the transparency in healthcare. I remember going with my family to the doctor and asking what it would cost for whatever the procedure they were going to do, and the person at the desk said, I can't tell you. And I said, well, you have a computer right there, why don't you just look it up and tell me what this is going to cost? And she said, well, yeah, but this computer doesn't do that. And I said, well, so wait a minute, you want me to eat the Big Mac and then find out you're going to charge me $50 for it? I said, I don't understand, like, in what universe do we live where I cannot understand what this is going to cost me before we have the procedure done? That lack of transparency and accountability has frustrated many of us in Hoosiers all over the state of Indiana, and that lack of competition. Also, I want to add this. We have 5 nonprofit hospitals that have over $30 billion on Wall Street, 30 billion plus. And I wrote an article a few years ago in the IBJ that called for 30% of that to be in Indiana Main Street Fund, because when they invest that money in Wall Street invests in our competition all over the United States. They do not invest that money back in Indiana. Can you imagine what it does for us to have a $10 billion fund to help transform communities all over the state of Indiana, using our Indiana Main Street initiative, using regional cities that we implemented in 2013, and using some of these programs that will help transform cities all over the state of Indiana? It's a real opportunity and something that we cannot pass up.
Thank you, Mr. Doden. Mr. Hill.
How do you make $1 billion error? How do you make $1 billion error? And how do you fix it? That's an interesting question. Do you do it on the backs of disabled children and their parents? That's a tough one. Or do you do it on the backs of the legislative process and those in the executive branch who caused the problem? From a healthcare standpoint, we need to make sure that we have the costs in line. You can go get a procedure, a quote, at 4 or 5 different hospitals, and you'll get 4 or 5 different prices. The gouging is unbelievable. So we're going to have a mechanism in place to assure that costs are put in line. Transparency is absolutely important, but we need to make sure that we have quality care, not insurance coverage, quality care. I recall when we went through Obamacare, and when I was Attorney General, I sued Obamacare because we knew that Obamacare was lying and we wanted to hold them accountable for it. We need to make sure that we have cost-effective, quality care that's reliable and accountable to all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Senator Braun?
So that billion-dollar error is not going to be easy to fix on the back of anyone. It just goes to show how broken the healthcare system is. And again, when you're going to take this on, you're taking on the biggest lobby. It is out in D.C. It is here in Indiana as well. You're going to be poking the bear. Here's what I did 16 years ago when I was sick and tired of hearing how lucky I was my premiums are only going up 5 to 10%. Yeah, you've all heard it. I had 300 employees then. Only 100 were using insurance. I was in that group where they'd stick it to you if you were a small business. I said enough was enough. Large enough to self-insure. They didn't tell me about it the year before. I asked them about that. They gave me kind of the secrets of why it costs so much. I drew it out of them. And until we're a system of prevention and wellness, not remediation, and we don't know anything about it because we're not engaged healthcare consumers, we're going to have more of that mess. I fixed all that in my own business by restructuring the plan. You may want to come work for the company. I don't run it anymore. We haven't had a premium increase in 16 years. It can be done. You got to have, again, the nerve to do it, and you got to be willing to take on the biggest vested interest in our state that delivers us terrible results for as much money as we spend on it.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chambers?
Yep. Thank you. First and foremost, to answer your question about the disabled, that is a tough situation, and so no, we need to provide the resources for families who have disabled family members at home. Number two, in a prosperous Indiana, we wouldn't have Medicaid rolls doubling in 10 years. That's the hidden issue within that $1 billion Medicaid miss, is the fact that the Medicaid rolls have doubled within the last 10 years, which means people are stressed and struggling in Indiana. I believe the number one job of a governor is to grow the economy, to lift people up, to put more money in Hoosier pockets. And so that's a canary in the coal mine to me about the fact that our Medicaid rolls have doubled. As it relates to hospital costs, it's as important as education. Education is probably more important, but yes, healthcare costs are more expensive than they should be, and it's a super complex problem. Federal government doesn't help, but we have hospital costs, and hospitals have surging payroll costs because of people leaving the workforce. So it's a workforce issue as well as a hospital cost issue. Of course, we need transparency. Of course, we need competition among medical practitioners. And it's also an insurance company issue. So this is multi-layered issue between hospitals and insurance companies, workforce, the federal government and the state government, and then a prosperity issue for Indiana. We need to grow the economy in Indiana, put more money in people's pockets. We need to have transparency, and we need to have competition, and we need to fix this issue on healthcare in the state of Indiana. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. Lieutenant Governor?
As Lieutenant Governor, I chair the Intellectual and Developmental Disability Task Force. We have 100,000 Hoosiers who have Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, or autism. And we work through that task force to ensure that they can live, work, and play in safe, accessible, affordable environments. Because our friends with disabilities are just friends with different abilities. And they have the same hopes and dreams and desires as each and every one of us. They want to have a job and have friends and love and be loved and be successful in life. And I have fought for that population, helping them to get their transportation issue fixed, helping to pay the caretakers more money so that they can make a living wage. We are having an Intellectual and Developmental Disability Task Force meeting on Monday to get an update on this issue, but I will continue to fight for them and for their families so that they can fulfill the dreams they dream and build the lives they want to build. And that is our responsibility, because we will be judged by how we care for the least among us. And so when it comes to healthcare costs, as governor, I will call a blue ribbon commission that I myself will chair and bring all the stakeholders together, the insurance companies, the hospitals, the pharmaceuticals, the pharma benefits, all the stakeholders, and we will be together working on that issue to get the cost down, because today we're picking out groups and we can't get healthcare costs down, which will benefit families and benefit companies, unless we collaborate and, as governor, use the bully pulpit to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So that completes question number 4. But before we move into question number 5, there is one person, I didn't get a chance to see her, but if the House lights could come up just for a second. Congresswoman Sparks, are you here, Victoria? Are you here somewhere? There you are. I apologize, I didn't get lay eyes on you earlier, but welcome, thank you for coming. Question number 5, back to Fanchon, and Mr. Hill will be the first.
Okay. According to recent polling, many Hoosiers believe identity politics is dividing our state and our country. Issues like transgender boys and girls sports, public universities allowing student groups to threaten other student groups, critical race theory taught in schools, and the emphasis on DEI in private and public institutions, it is dominating our culture. And I might add, it is having a negative and destructive effect psychologically and culturally on our young people. How will you combat identity politics as the leader of Indiana, and would you eliminate the Governor's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion?
Well, I appreciate you asking that question, and if you may have noticed, several months ago I came out and said that on day 1, as your governor, I will eliminate the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity. You know, this is a part of the weaponization of race that's going on in this country that's destroying who we are. That, along with the sexualization of children, and we can't even come to grips with it. DEI is one of the most dangerous aspects. It's affirmative action all over again, and we don't need it. Now, the reason that I'm eliminating the diversity office is not because I'm opposed to diversity, absolutely not. Diversity is a good thing, so long as we don't forego excellence. Inclusion is a wonderful thing, as long as we don't forego competence. And equity is a wonderful thing, as long as we don't forego fairness. Our Constitution provides an opportunity for all of us. Under my leadership, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have meaningful communications about race. We're going to have meaningful resolutions in our communities about how we work together, live together, and love together.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Senator?
I like that, Curtis. Yeah. Yes. That should be replaced with a theme of my campaign: freedom and opportunity. DEI is another thing that's been concocted to try to create results that end up with unintended consequences. Everyone in this country should have the same opportunity. When you start trying to fix outcomes, it's not based on merit, and you get into all kinds of problems. I'm in the business of fighting that currently in the job I've got, and it's happening on steroids. And when your own states, which should be the expression of freedom at the level that we all live in the government that should be more accountable to you, that is how it starts creeping in. You can see it happening out east. It should never become endemic in our own government. Freedom and opportunity, and do the things that's going to give every Hoosier the opportunity to succeed without trying to have prescribed outcomes. It doesn't work.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chambers?
I do believe identity politics is corrosive to our national fabric. I do oppose quotas. I do think we should seek diverse candidate pools, but also hire the best person in that candidate pool no matter what. This falls into the same category as CRT. It shouldn't be in our schools. And I do believe it falls into the same category as boys shouldn't be using girls' bathrooms. So again, would I, on the first day, would I close the Office of DEI? If we're doing a good job evaluating a diverse talent pool and picking the best people, we don't need that office. So that I would close that office on the first day as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Lieutenant Governor?
DEI is neither moral nor constitutional. I was raised to believe in equality and opportunity, not equality of outcome. DEI started in the 60s as workforce diversity training, but today it has crept into our schools and into our universities. It is divisive, it is exclusionary, and it is insulting. And last year, the Supreme Court ruled the racial preferences were not constitutional in university admissions. So the logic is clear. If racial preferences aren't constitutional, then DEI isn't constitutional either. And I would not support, I would close down the Office of Inclusive or Equity or Opportunity, whatever they call it at the state level, because no state dollars should go towards that. But if we're going to talk about inclusiveness in the workforce, let's talk about Hoosiers with disabilities. They have a 70% unemployment rate. In September, I visited companies that hired Hoosiers with disabilities, companies like Cook Medical and Cummins and Derby Industries and SMG Corporation and Toyota. And the employees there said that they had more opportunity and more meaningful lives because of being hired. And the company said they had a more inclusive workforce as a result. So as governor, I will focus on giving opportunity to all Hoosiers, including those with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Mr. Doden?
I want to be clear, this has been my experience. People who talk the most are doing the least. That's been my experience in life. And I cannot stand virtue signaling. And DEI is virtue signaling. Look, we have all been taught in this room the golden rule. Treat other people the way that you want to be treated. Treat people with respect. Now let me be clear on this. Anyone that knows me knows when you grow up in Butler, Indiana, that you root for the underdog. I'm a big time rooter for the underdog. Just ask my kids when we watch sports. I also believe in mentorship. I'm here today because of dozens of mentors who poured into my life over the years, and I try to do the same behind me. And I believe that we need to create opportunity for all. That's part of what I love about this country. But I cannot stand and will not stand under my administration for any virtue signaling. So now you can tell that we will be eliminating the Office of DEI on the first day. And let me also say this. We, under my administration, will have less talk and more doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doden. So that concludes question number 5. I want to do a couple things, and I need to bring to your attention, Joy. So could I have the house lights up one more time? So I haven't seen her, but Elise Nishala is our new state comptroller, is here, and I apologize. Elise, oh, there you are. Welcome. Welcome, thank you for coming. Is there anyone else I haven't seen? Good. So I'm looking at our schedule, and General Crossan has told us at 8:20 we have to begin, I'm following the rules, I'm looking at the schedule, we have to begin 2-minute closings. So I think we have to clean up at 8:30 the mess we left in the lobby. But, so here's my suggestion. We have, I know in the book, question 6, but let's be prepared to do 2 more questions, full questions, and then move into a speed round as we get around 8:20. Okay?
I'm grumpy about this.
That's why I'm giving you a heads up. You choose the question. So,
Let's get on with question 6 then,
so
shall
let's
we?
get on with question 6, and we'll begin with Senator Braun.
The stated purpose of Indiana's economic development agencies is to grow the economy and create well-paying jobs. A recent investigation by Fox 59, CBS 4, and State Affairs reporters alleged that up to 56% of Indiana Economic Development Commission projects may have failed to meet investment targets, raising questions about effective use of tax dollars. That agency, of course, is the one under fire for its plan to send 100 million gallons of water per day, 35 miles away from Tippecanoe to Boone County. While Indiana has been fully controlled by Republicans, Hoosiers' incomes have declined relative to the national average, including before Holcomb's disastrous lockdowns. Is it right to use taxpayer money to reward favorite economic activity, and why? And what can state government do to unleash Hoosiers' ability to better themselves and their families economically?
Good question. So, when it comes to how we grow this state, we're blessed with a good business climate in general. I do think it makes sense that you're going to try to target economic development only if it's felt and done across the state. You cannot have a technique that's going to try to lure in only the biggest companies. They're expensive, everyone else is competing for them, and they're generally only going to benefit a few places. I want to fertilize the field took a nearly 80% pay cut to do it, took 20 years to get things going. That's what we need to be making more possible. And we've got them across our great state. So trying to have an environment that's going to be more broadly spread out to benefit the entirety of the state. Don't spend the huge big bucks as your only strategy. Make sure you think things through when you do decide to do something big and you don't get the cart before the horse, and you may not have enough basic resources to even make it work. I've done that for 37 years prior to becoming a senator. That's the thing I'm most excited about. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chambers?
Yeah, thank you. I got a bit of contrast on the stage with this question. So I believe the number one job of a governor is to grow the economy. First and foremost, so the statistic at 56% of economic development projects didn't come into realization is not necessarily accurate. So the number's closer to 90% acceptance rate, and that's the statistic they used was just one tool. And if you look at all the tools, we have a 90% acceptance rate. The other critical point to this, guys, is those incentives or investments that are made to work with companies, global companies who want to locate here. There's 1,000 global companies in Indiana. Those incentives are all performance-based. They don't get paid unless they invest the dollars in the ground or hire the people. They have to certify the investment and the employment before those dollars go out the door. Everything we're doing is performance-based. We are in a global economy, and I'll give you an example. In my term as Secretary of Commerce, 2 years, we brought in $51 billion. It's never been done before in state history. Mitch Daniels brought in $45 billion in 8 years. We did it in 2 years because we went out and got an economy that's good for Indiana, that's high wages, to lift people up economically. And I'll give you a great story. Back in 2008, I believe, Kokomo was on the Forbes list of the fastest dying communities in Indiana. Today, it has an $11 billion injection of capital, hiring 2,000 high-wage jobs. The dry cleaners are doing well. The Dairy Queen's doing well. The Little League's doing well. The landscapers are doing well. It lifted up the whole community. There's 2,000 new housing units going on in Kokomo, Indiana. That's because of a state strategy to grow the economy and compete with Ohio and North Carolina, to compete with China and Arizona. So these are performance-based incentives used to bring global companies to this great state we call Indiana. I believe Indiana is great, but it can be better. It can be better if we go get an economy that's good for Hoosiers. And it takes competition in the global economy. 1,000 companies in this state in 8 global offices. We have a good product, and it's the people and the universities and the location. And we have the tools, and we're investing them well. So I believe in an aggressive, offensive strategy to grow our economy, lift people up. People, quality of life is better when they are financially secure. And that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years, $51 billion, 30% higher wages. It can be done.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Lieutenant Governor.
The goal of economic development should be to provide economic freedom, and we provide economic freedom when we give you or allow you to keep more of your money. I want to eliminate the state income tax. We want to axe the tax. I travel the state. Hoosiers are being crushed by the high cost of living, by inflation, by Bidenomics. We have an opportunity to put thousands of dollars into their pockets every year. Now, my opponents, special interest groups, and big spending bureaucrats are screaming bloody murder and saying it can't be done. But that money's not theirs. It's yours. And you will always spend it more wisely than the government. And as governor, I'll make sure you get to keep it. And what they're really saying when they're saying that is government needs more of your money, and you need less. It's not going to be easy. It has to be phased in. We can't do it overnight. We have to have triggers in place to protect against economic downturn. But as former vice chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, as former auditor of state, I am telling you, we can do it. We can do it if we limit government growth, if we end wasteful government spending, if we modernize government and find efficiencies. We can absolutely do it. The Tax Foundation said that Indiana is 10th in the country for our overall tax environment, but 7 of the states ahead of us have no sales or income tax. We eliminate our state income tax. We put money in your pocket, and we make Indiana a no income tax state where people want to stay, people want to move, just like today. They're flocking to Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. Let's axe the tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Mr. Doden.
So as you travel the state of Indiana, what you'll hear from almost every employer who's trying to grow their business is that they do not have enough employees to grow their business. And our strategy in the past has been to go after large projects that even bring in more employment, when the real situation we have today is the attraction and retention of talent. And that's what our Indiana Main Street Initiative is about. We spend $1 billion a year in economic development, $1 billion, and we've never had a strategy for the 2.5 million people that live in small towns, like I grew up in. So we're going to take $100 million of the billion and engage the private sector and local leaders to begin to restore communities. And most of our small towns, 80% of their building stock is falling down. And we have a housing crisis. And you know what you cannot do when you have a housing crisis is grow your economy, because you cannot attract and retain talent. And we cannot be the state where 4 or 5 or 6 counties are doing well, and where nearly 52 or more of our counties are actually losing population in real terms. That's what regional cities was about. When I recommended that to Mike Pence in 2013 and we implemented that, you know, at first there was some skepticism, but as people begin to see it work, they begin to see 13 regions be able to come back to life, specifically 3 regions, and the private sector engaged in restoring those communities. We have to be a state that the only way that we know that attracts and retains talent is if you have vibrant communities all over the state of Indiana. It has to be a 9-2 Cali strategy, and that's what we have in writing for you to review and understand how we're going to transform the entire state of Indiana.
Thank you, Mr. Doden. Mr. Hill.
Well, Mr. Chambers, we may have broken a record of economic investment, but 3rd graders still don't know how to read. Our first priority as government is not to grow the economy. Our first priority of government is to secure our liberty, our freedom. Economic growth is important, but not at the cost of who we are. Indiana is not a product. Indiana is not for sale. If we're going to sell it, who are we going to sell it to? The Chinese? Are we going to sell it to these woke corporations in Indianapolis that say to us, we need a certain type of culture here to be attractive to the folks we want to bring in? Or should we be looking at folks who say, we're Hoosiers, we're from Indiana, we do things a different way. If you want to be a part of us, join us who we are. We're not going to join you. Economic development needs to be based upon who we are as local communities. It shouldn't be the heavy hand of the state coming in and picking winners and losers and saying, we're going to compete with the locals. We're going to make decisions because we're smarter than you. We see that too much from government. We need to get back to basics. We need to understand who we are. Indiana is the heart physically of this nation and can be the heart spiritually of this nation. We don't need to change for the sake of economic growth and economic development. We're doing just fine the way we are.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. So let's do a full question, and then let's sneak in a little bit. Could we do two speed questions?
Yeah.
So,
We
Fanchon?
only have yes or no questions left.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know, I was,
We can do.
I'd be happy
yes
to
or
add
no.
a few extras.
by the way, let's just move to speed round, Joy.
Okay.
So,
Okay, yeah.
we've gotten back on time a little bit. I thought we got ahead a little bit, but, so we're actually right on time. So
All
let's
right.
do some of the speed questions. So as a reminder, these are hopefully questions posed in a way with a one-word answer, yes or no. Don't need any explanation, just yes or no, or perhaps one-word answer. So we'll do our best.
And
And we'll
kicking off-
start with, let's go ahead and start with the senator.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to spice things up a little bit. All right, which United States Supreme Court justice, past and present, would you consider to be the model for judicial appointments during your administration?
Past, Antonin Scalia.
Can you do your microphone, Senator? Thank you.
Past, Antonin Scalia. Present, Clarence Thomas.
Mr. Chambers?
Past Scalia, Present Amy Coney Barrett.
Lieutenant Governor?
I agree with you, Senator. Past Scalia, present, of course, Thomas.
Mr. Doden?
Well, I studied law school, and my favorite by far and away was Antonin Scalia. I'd read him every day, and that would be the model.
Mr. Hill?
I love both Scalia and Thomas. Thomas in particular because of his integrity and grit and fortitude.
So, thank you for that. By the way, really well done. Wasn't one word, but really short, so well done. Try one more, Joey.
If you were governor, would you join the more than 24 governors expressing support and pledging to send National Guard troops to help Texas secure the U.S. border while the Biden administration refuses to?
Yes.
Maybe more than one word, but we need to fix the border. We need to fix immigration. The front door is closed, the back door is wide open, so the answer is yes.
Yes, as governor, we will deploy the National Guard. We have deployed them, and we will continue to deploy them.
Yes.
Well, I said this months ago, and I issued a press release just today supporting Texas in this particular issue. Yes.
Well done again. Do you have one more over there?
We have
Yes,
many
we
more.
do.
Hang on, what did you
Yes,
say,
we
Joy?
do.
Okay.
All right. This is a simple yes or no question. Should school board candidates be required to declare a political party affiliation?
Yes.
Transparency, yes.
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 You
You
guys are really
support
good.
allowing citizens and companies under the control of China, North Korea, and other countries who want to undermine the United States to buy land in Indiana?
No. I've got a bill on that in the U.S. Senate right now trying to stop that.
In our economic development policy that we issued, the answer is no. In our China policy we issued, so no.
No, and as Secretary of Agriculture, I played hardball to keep China from buying our valuable farmland, and also when I could see that land near our military sites could be bought up, I made it stop. Thank you.
No.
Already been there, not going to do it.
All right. We're right on time. Joy's like, okay, one more, Joy, and then we're going to move to 2-minute closing.
Would you remove state funding from state universities, grant recipients, and K-12 schools that violate the U.S. Constitution's ban on all forms of state-sponsored racial hatred, such as preaching white privilege or supporting terrorist groups like Hamas?
Yes.
Is this a one-word answer?
If you can do it in 5, I
nuance
suppose.
it. I mean, I really
Just
think
one.
that you can put in a board of trustees that will carry the weight here and not have to defund our state universities. That would be my first approach. But if it's short of that, if you can't have your state trustees that you appoint as governor run the universities the way they should be run, then yes, we'd have to start defunding them and using dollars as a lever. So,
Okay.
Yes.
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 All right. Thus concludes our speed round. Thank you very much. By the way, really well done, candidates. We greatly appreciate that. So now we're going to move into the closing remarks phase. So 2 minutes for each candidate. And let's start with Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. I'm running for governor because I want to boldly lead Indiana into the future. And I have the passion, the commitment, the courage, and the experience to deliver results for Hoosiers. We're going to start by eliminating Indiana state income tax, putting money into your pocket. You know, the battle for the heart and soul of America will not be won or lost in Washington, D.C. with the endless bickering and inability to get anything done. The battle for the heart and soul of America will be won state by state. I'm running for governor because I want to make sure Indiana doesn't become a California, a New York, a Michigan, or an Illinois. I'm running for governor to protect our conservative values, values that say parents should control what's being taught to our children. I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with our police and enforce our crime laws to the fullest, and we'll send a message to the criminals and the fentanyl dealers that you may get into this country through our wide open southern borders, but when you come to Indiana, you will pay the price. We will axe the tax. We'll live within our means. We're not going to saddle our children and grandchildren with a mountain of debt. As governor, I'll support our workers, our companies, so we can compete with other states and other countries, including China, and win. The Indiana you and I will build will never cast aside our most vulnerable Hoosiers, the unborn, the elderly, the disabled, those struggling with mental illness and addiction, because they're our families, our friends, and our neighbors. No, the Indiana you and I will build together will never compromise in protecting faith, family, and freedom. So, do we have challenges ahead? Of course we do. But we haven't come this far to have just come this far. I want to be your governor. I'm Suzanne Crouch. Let's make Indiana better together. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Mr. Doden.
As many of you know by now, if you've been watching our ads, my grandfather was a pastor to rural communities for 40 years all over Indiana. And he taught me two very important things, many things, but two that I'll speak of today. One, faith without works is dead. Number two, without vision, people perish. So what you can expect from me and my leadership is a bold vision for the state of Indiana. That's what our Indiana Main Street Initiative is about, is to make sure that our small towns and the 2.5 million people that live there have a bright future. That's what our Regional Cities Initiative is about, to make sure that each region could be competitive. And that's what our plan for our having a thriving capital city and our capital zone. And again, you can read about all these. But one of the most important things we do is protect the vulnerable. That's why I'm ardently pro-life. I think it's a human rights issue, not just a religious issue for me. And we can do more. We have a zero-cost adoption policy where our 13,000 kids in foster care can have a chance to be part of a loving home. We either invest in these kids up front, or 25% of our budget is FSA, family services. We either invest in these kids and strengthening families up front, or we pay for it on the backside. I'd rather invest in people up front than try to put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. And then there's efficient, effective government. We have 30 agency heads that spend $22 billion of state money and $22 billion of federal money every year. And how those agency heads spend that money really matters to how we serve the Hoosiers in Indiana. I'm the only candidate on this stage that said every agency head will have to reapply for their job. We're going to bring super talented people that come in and serve the people of Indiana. So as I close, I'm going to ask you to do a couple things with me tonight. Number one, I'm going to ask you to roll up your sleeves and put your faith to work. This is going to be a team effort. And number two, I'm going to ask you to have a bold vision for your community and for the people that you serve. And number three, I'm going to ask you to pray for all of us. Pray for safety and pray that we will serve the people of Indiana well and that we will have a servant's heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doden. Mr. Hill.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm running for governor because I believe that Hoosiers deserve proven conservative leadership. Proven, not just throwing out bullet points and I'll do this and I'll do that, but proven. We are under attack, under truth. For. What you're looking for on this stage is leadership. The lieutenant governor can come up and give wonderful bullet points and axe the tax, but you have to say, you're lieutenant governor now, what have you done that establishes your bold leadership? You have gentlemen up here who've never served in public service before, in public office before. What have you done? How do you prove that you're the kind of leader you claim to be? Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome that review. Thank you very much for your attention. God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Senator?
I've been lucky, got dropped into a place like Jasper, Indiana, in a state like ours. And yes, you need to look at what you've done with your life up to the point where you want to run our state. It does have to be based upon principles. The time I've spent in D.C., as crazy as the 5 years have been to date, I've never voted off the principles all of us believe in. It's easy to do. You can get there. People are going to try to change your mind. But look to see what each one of us has done here. And I would say another requirement, if you want to run the biggest business in our state, is maybe you should have spent some time signing the front side of a paycheck. I did that for 37 years. I am more proud of that. I told you what we did with health insurance, one of the hardest things to grapple with in any part of our government, our economy. Stuff like that can be done. And the other thing is, do you practice what you preach? Do you say something, get in, and then shrink to the task? I've never done that. Not when I was competing as a little scrappy business, turning it into a regional company, a national company eventually. In those principles of reinvest every penny you make. Keep your overhead low. Never give up on the core values that drive you to have a successful business, raise a family successfully, or lead a state. You're going to want someone, when they get there, that yes, will take the political risk, will poke the bear, will get things done to where we don't have the highest health care costs in the country with the poorest outcomes, where we're still teaching kids, spending $11 billion a year, half our state budget, and they're reading at levels 10 years ago. Check me out, Mike Braun for Indiana.com. It'll give you the 12 planks of the freedom and opportunity agenda that I'm going to bring to this state, and I want you all along. And by the way, you can visit me on any Friday in my hometown. We can talk about it, and I will visit every county between now and November, just like I've done for the last 5 years as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chambers?
Thank you. First of all, to First Principles, thank you for this event. And I love the story of First Principles. A group of families, friends, community leaders got together during COVID frequently and came up with this idea. You live by the mantra that brought me here today is if you're going to complain about it, let's just go do something about it. And so thank you for putting on this forum. That's how I'm here. I've never done this before. I am the rookie on the stage, that's for sure. I've been in business 40 years, built a business from nothing. But don't complain about it, go do something about it. And in our family, we have the courage to get into this new business, politics. I believe in Indiana. I'm grateful for my 40-year journey in entrepreneurship. I'm grateful for the things in this state. And I believe it's great, but it can be even better. I am frustrated and actually angry that our GDP growth is below U.S. average. I'm frustrated and angry that our average wages in Indiana are below U.S. average, because Indiana is a great state. We shouldn't be performing below average. Curtis, good luck doing the things you want to do with education if you aren't growing your economy. And good luck cutting income taxes and thinking you're going to fix education. A growing economy affords us the ability to do a few things: to fix education, to back our police and make sure our public safety is protecting us from increasing crime, to deal with mental health and health care. A growing economy helps us fix things and improve Hoosier quality of life. The other thing it does is it allows government to be smaller. When you have a growing economy and people are prosperous and secure, guess what? Crime is down, education is up, healthcare issues are down. And government can be smaller. So a growing economy affords us the ability to fix things and shrink government and improves overall quality of life. The number one job of governor in my book is to grow the economy, and that's why I'm running for governor. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. So, First Principle friends, this concludes the formal part, and join me again in thanking our candidates to come and do this, because let me tell you, look, I know we all have our views of stuff, right? Doing what these people do is really hard. It is hard. So thank goodness, whether you agree with people or not, that they're willing to step up, and thank you to our officials here who are willing to step up. This is a hard business. So give them a round of applause. Thank you for your time and your willingness. Thank you for running. Thank you for your commitment. I'm not done yet, though. Thank you for your commitment. And also, friends, join us in thanking Joy and Fanchon. Now, there's one other thing. Heather, I want to introduce General Crossan. We all know who she is. But Heather is the founder and the organizer. Come on here. So this is Heather, as we all know. Give Heather a wonderful round of applause. Thank you for doing what you do. And let me remind you, this is a volunteer-run organization. We do not have staff. We do not have anybody paid. We don't pay Heather. She does pretty much all the work. So we welcome help and we welcome dollars as well. There's QR codes in the lobby, et cetera, if you want to find out about more. But thank you for coming tonight. Safe travels home. And please vote. I know you will. Thank you, everybody.